president of Yemen should take a serious steps in terms of addressing the concerns of the people, the demonstrators who are looking really for reforms, for freedom of speech, to see human rights activists working freely, reporting whatever taking place in terms of wrongs happening on both sides of the country.
Okay. And if I could take it to Abdul Razak Saleh, and if I could ask you to be very brief. As we heard there, that this is going to be a long process. How long can you see these protesters being on the streets for?
I don't think it will take any longer unless the government is going to stay in the main cities and protect itself and its offices by the military and security forces. Otherwise, they will lose control. They have already started losing control in many areas, like especially in southern parts, in Lahj, Hadramaut, and Shabwa, and Abyan. And also now Taiz is out of hand, out of control. In Sana'a, the capital, which was a red line almost for any protesters, now the government is weakened. And I can't see them going on for a very long time unless they are going to recourse to violence and start a civil war.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much to my guests, Sheikh Mohammed Abu Lakhom, Zaki Shahab, and Abdul Razak Saleh. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We, of course, welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.
It is in the details, a look, a connection, the moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Decoding the stories that shape our views.
Those images catapulted the story back into the headlines.
Everything that I thought would be easy was hard, and everything that I thought would be hard was easy.
From mainstream media to consumer-led advertising.
There are other options.
What's at the front line of global media?
This has been reported worldwide.
With a major media angle to it.
Comparing news and challenging views. The Listening Post. At this time on Al Jazeera.
The Pyongyang Film Academy hosts some of North Korea's brightest young stars. What does it take to serve a national propaganda machine? 101 East examines the privileged lives of the country's elite. 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
They grew up as Americans, children of refugees who fled the war in Somalia. Yet now, some are returning to fight and die in a homeland they can barely remember. This is the story of young Somalis who have forsaken the American dream in pursuit of a jihadist ideology. What's turned them to this path? What's been the impact on their families back here in the US? And what can the American authorities do about it?
The Raghi Omar Report, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Stop the massacre. Anti-government protesters in Libya calling on security forces to cease killing civilians. While demonstrations continue in Bahrain, trade unionists now calling for a national strike on Sunday. Good morning from Doha, where it is 11 a.m. 0800 hours GMT. I'm Kamal Santa Maria with the world news from Al Jazeera. Also ahead, why this family photo from a G20 summit in Paris isn't quite as happy as it might be. Plus, racist or realistic, the Australian mural stoking huge controversy over immigration. There are anti-government protests all over the Middle East at the moment. We're going to start in Libya, where the protests seem to be spreading. The death toll is getting higher. Some reports put the number of dead as high as 200 now. Stephanie Decker has this report on what is turning out to be the biggest challenge yet to Muammar Gaddafi's 42-year rule.
The streets of Benghazi. It's an ongoing battle and the scene of death and violence.
I have cousins who are in the streets whose friends have been killed right in front of them. The killings are just going on. Bodies are piled everywhere. The numbers that they announce on TV are nowhere to compare. They're just firing people. Sniper shooters are on the rooftop. Every house, every single house.
In the morgue, one man takes a last look at his relative and murmurs, "He was not armed." Also from Benghazi, this video, which we cannot independently verify, claims to show what protesters believe is a mercenary, a hired killer, contracted by the Libyan regime to attack demonstrators. And the unrest is spreading across the country. Here in Al-Baidiyah, thousands gather near the main mosque, another city rocked by days of protests against the country's leadership. Chanting "There's no God but Allah," mourners carry the body of one of those killed. And there's more chaos. Anti-Gaddafi graffiti sprayed on walls, and a voice through a loudspeaker saying, "There's no state here." Reports of casualties are running high and constantly rising. The city's hospital overwhelmed. The morgue is filled with bodies, and more is still coming. But on Libyan state television, a very different picture. No mention of any anti-government protests. Instead, supporters of the Libyan leader are shown on the streets of the capital, Tripoli. It's difficult getting information out of Libya, with communications and the internet disrupted. But what's almost certain, Libya is facing more unrest in the days to come. Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera.
Let's look at some reaction from on the ground. Fatih Terbil is a lawyer, key organizer of the protests in Libya, arrested last Wednesday as well, but since released. He also represents victims of a 1996 prison massacre in Libya. He spoke to us earlier over the internet from Benghazi.
رددها المتظاهرون فلعل صعوبة الصوت قد يحول بيننا وبين توصيل كثير من المعلومات ولكن أقول
The audio is muffled because they're not allowing our voices to be heard, so I apologize in advance. What happened today in Benghazi is a massacre against the truth. It is a massacre in the full sense of the word. All kinds of weapons are being used against the civilian population. They are firing at people indiscriminately, using civilian cars without license plates to roam the streets and shoot at the people. There are dozens, maybe even hundreds of people who have been killed today. Yesterday, I was at the Jala hospital to look at the dead bodies and found that most of those killed were shot to the head and chest and in the eyes. The extreme violence used is clear and can be seen on the bodies. It was a frightening sight. People here are living under very tough circumstances. Traffic is impossible to drive through because gunfire being shot by security forces and militias loyal to Gaddafi is adding to the chaos. I cannot even describe the situation to you. The youth are falling dead everywhere. Even for those hiding behind walls, sniper fire can reach them.